So this is Beach Gallery and we're on the island of Hoy in the Orkney Islands, and we're just looking at the exhibition, part of the exhibition of Shoreline Birds by Adele Pound, and we're basing a series of classes on Adele's work during the summer of 2019. And the next one we're doing is this one over here. I can take you to the window of the herring gull, and it's a pencil and watercolour. The original is £70 and it's here in the gallery, but the people that book on the class will be painting their own version of it. It's designed for beginners, so we'll be running through some of the techniques that you need to get started with this. And a few things that we're going to notice about it is firstly how Adele works. She works out in the field. She's a bird watcher primarily, so she's out there sketching in all weathers, probably in the rain and the wind, but she's capturing their every move multiple times in different poses, and then when she gets back to the studio she'll pick the pose that she wants to paint. So this one is probably worked up in the studio in pencil and watercolour, and you can see the pencil marks that she's used. They're not intended to be, accurate. They're simply a guide for the watercolour paint which is used over the top. So we'll be looking at the lightest, we're looking to see where the lightest lights are and the darkest darks. Being as it's watercolour, it's perfectly alright to have lots of white unpainted paper, and you can see there's large areas of unpainted paper here, and obviously on the bird itself, the white areas of the bird. The darkest areas are on this, it's probably one of those wooden posts that you get extending into the sea. I think they're called breakwaters, aren't they? There's one outside the gallery here. We often get a heron sitting on it when the gull moves over. And the other darkest area is the tail, and also the eye is quite dark, and it's important to get the eye looking right when you're painting animals for it to look realistic and be a successful work of art. Also, we're looking at the palette. It's a limited palette of these colours, so they're all similar colours. There's nothing too different that jars the eye, apart from the red area on the beak, which is a feature of the gull. I like the way that she's let the paint sort of smudge and run into each other. That's characteristic of watercolour, where the paint that you're putting over the top blends into the paint that's underneath because of the water, and it sort of seeps into it. Sometimes you don't want that feature, but in this case I do like that feature because it acknowledges really, this is my interpretation of course, it acknowledges the environment that the gull would be in. It's a probably very wet watery environment, and I think that just acknowledges that. Also, there are some different kinds of marks. These little marks indicating the marks of the plumage, they've probably been done with very little water in the pigment on the brush, with a small brush. So you're getting much drier, harder marks. This is a hard mark as well, a hard edge, where she's put the paint down over possibly dry or very damp, not very damp paper, so that the paint hasn't oozed into the wetness, as opposed to these softer edges, which are probably where the first layer is still slightly dry, still slightly damp when she's put the second layer over, and they've oozed into the damp paper beneath. These greys would have been probably done in different layers. Watercolour works light to dark, so these lighter tones would have gone down first. She would have laid those in as a first wash, and then laid over a darker wash, and there's an even darker wash there to build up the layers, and that would give you the soft or hard edges, whichever she's chosen to include. I think she's probably chosen to include dark edges there to indicate the background of a reflective surface on the water. She's not been too prescriptive about putting detail in, so she's leaving a lot to your imagination as the viewer, and that's important in an image, I think. It just creates enough information for you to create your own story about what it is she's portraying. The shapes of the wings are described by these grey areas, and she's used different tones there, and also by these wiggly lines and zigzaggy lines there, which are quite primitive marks, but they are just enough information to describe the wings. And I think it's a really successful picture. The people that are coming on the course will really enjoy making this drawing for themselves, and I think we'll really enjoy our day. So that's what we're going to be doing this week at Beach Gallery, when we're not looking out the window at the seals and the eider ducks and the ducklings, which are out there like little bits of fluff in the water, bless them. Okay, it's the end of today's art chat.